The desert wind carries more than sand tonight. It carries whispers of ancient grudges, the metallic tang of fear, and the low hum of engines deep beneath the earth. Beneath a sky streaked with the contrails of unseen drones, the Middle East doesn't sleep. It simmers. Breathe in the scent of dry earth and tension. Breathe out the illusion of distance. This is not a news report. This is a reconnaissance flight over a live minefield. 3 fuses burn. Listen to the hiss. The Middle East is not merely a region on a map. It is a palimpsest etched with the blood of empires, the fervor of prophets, the weight of black gold, and the desperation of thirst. Its fault lines are deep, ancient, and treacherously active, while countless tensions simmer. 3 specific risks possess the terrifying potential to detonate the fragile equilibrium, cascading into conflicts that could redraw borders, shatter economies, and ignite a global crisis. These are not distant possibilities, they are gathering storms visible on the horizon. Risk number 1. The Northern Front ignites. Israel-Hezbollah, and the looming all-out war. The embers never truly died after October 7th. While Gaza burns, the real existential dread for regional stability festers along Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Here, the world's most heavily armed non-state actor, Hezbollah, stares down the barrel of one of its most potent adversaries. This is not a sporadic skirmish zone. It is a meticulously prepared battlefield, primed for destruction on a scale unseen since 2006. The stakes are catastrophic. Hezbollah possesses an estimated 150,000-plus rockets and missiles, including precision-guided munitions capable of striking deep into Israel's heartland. Tel Aviv, Haifa, critical infrastructure. Israel's arsenal, including the formidable Iron Dome and devastating air power, promises a response of unparalleled ferocity. Unlike Hamas, Hezbollah is a quasi-state actor integrated into Lebanon's fractured political and social fabric, backed unequivocally by Iran. A full-scale war here would be orders of magnitude more destructive than Gaza. Think cities leveled, mass displacement on both sides. Lebanon, already a failed state, utterly shattered. The tinder is dry. Daily exchanges of fire have already created a 10 kilometers dead zone on either side of the border, displacing over 150,000 people. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah openly declares his fighters are tying down Israeli forces, aiding Hamas. Israel vows it will no longer tolerate this threat on its border. The rhetoric is escalating. The strikes are probing deeper, targeting higher-value commanders and more sophisticated weaponry. The rules of engagement from 2006 are fraying, replaced by a dangerous game of chicken. The triggers are multiple, a major Israeli strike killing a senior Hezbollah figure, or worse, an Iranian commander embedded with them. A devastating Hezbollah rocket barrage causing mass Israeli casualties. A catastrophic miscalculation during heightened tensions. Or, simply, an Israeli decision that the northern threat must be eliminated. Gaza notwithstanding, the pressure within Netanyahu's war cabinet to restore deterrence in the north is immense and growing. The regional conflagration. This is the gateway to a wider war. Iran would face immense pressure to respond directly or via its vast network of proxies in Iraq, Syria, Yemen. Syria becomes an immediate battleground. U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria become high-value targets. Global energy markets, already jittery, would face seismic shocks. The risk of direct Iran-Israel conflict, long dreaded, becomes terrifyingly plausible. Breathe in the acrid smoke of a future conflagration. Breathe out the naive hope of containment. This fuse is short, sparking, and soaked in accelerant. Risk number 2. The nuclear shadow lengthens. Iran's threshold and the looming crisis of confidence. Iran's nuclear program is the slow-burning fuse beneath the entire region. It's not just about whether Iran gets a bomb, but how close it gets, the threshold, and how the U.S., Israel, and Gulf states react as that line is approached and potentially crossed. The JCPOA-Iran nuclear deal lies in tatters. Diplomacy is paralyzed. The program advances relentlessly, crossing the invisible lines. Iran is enriching uranium up to 60% purity, a hair's breadth from the 90% plus needed for weapons. It possesses enough of this material for multiple bombs if further enriched. Critically, it has mastered the complex processes, reducing breakout time to produce one bomb's worth of weapons-grade material to potentially a matter of weeks. Perhaps even more alarming is its growing stockpile of 20% enriched uranium and its advances in producing uranium metal, used in bomb cores and operating advanced centrifuges. It is acquiring the irreversible knowledge and capability. The crisis of threshold. Israel views a nuclear-capable Iran as an existential threat. Its policy is clear: prevention. The U.S., while committed to never allowing Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, is wary of another major war. Gulf states live in terror of a nuclear-armed Persian hegemon. The danger is a catastrophic miscalculation, Israel launching a preemptive strike, believing Iran is imminently weaponizing, even if it hasn't assembled a device. Conversely, Iran might believe it can achieve an unassailable threshold status without provoking a devastating response, a fatal gamble. Proxy wars as prelude. Iran's regional aggression through its axis of resistance, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iraqi Shia militias, it ends separate from the nuclear issue. It's a shield and a sword. Attacks by these groups, particularly on Israel or U.S. forces, could be the spark that ignites a direct confrontation targeting the nuclear program itself. The Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping, already a stark example of Iran's ability to project power and disrupt the global economy, showcasing the interconnectedness of the threats. The stakes: global annihilation. A strike on Iranian nuclear facilities risks triggering immediate retaliation against Israel. U.S. bases. Gulf oil infrastructure potentially closing the Strait of Hormuz minus 20% of global oil supply, and unleashing Hezbollah's arsenal. It could draw in major powers. The ultimate, unthinkable risk: escalation to the nuclear level if Iran eventually succeeds in weaponizing, or if Israel employs its own undeclared arsenal in desperation. Breathe in the heavy air of atomic anxiety. Breathe out the false comfort of diplomatic statements. This fuse is long but burning steadily towards an unimaginable detonation. Risk number 3. The scorched earth. Climate collapse as the ultimate conflict multiplier, while political and military risks dominate headlines. The slow-motion disaster of climate change is the insidious force eroding the very foundations of the Middle East, acting as a potent accelerant for every other conflict. Water scarcity, extreme heat, desertification, and failing agriculture aren't future threats. They are present, brutal realities driving instability today. Water wars. From tension to weapon, the Middle East is the most water-stressed region on Earth. Rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates, vital for Iraq and Syria, are dammed and diverted upstream by Turkey and Iran. The Nile flows through a tinderbox of Egyptian-Ethiopian tensions over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD. Jordan faces critical shortages. Yemen is parched. Control of water sources is increasingly a tool of power and coercion. States restrict flow to downstream rivals. Non-state actors seize dams and canals. Farmers clash with security forces over access. This isn't metaphor, it's hydrological warfare. The scorching heat and failing harvests. Temperatures are rising twice as fast as the global average in parts of the region. Extreme heat waves, 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit plus, are becoming commonplace, killing the vulnerable, crippling economies, and fueling unrest. Agriculture, already marginal, is collapsing. Food insecurity skyrockets, making populations desperate and susceptible to extremist recruitment or reliant on external aid controlled by malign actors. Mass displacement and state failure. As land becomes uninhabitable and livelihoods vanish, climate refugees swell. Internally displaced populations strain fragile states like Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Cross-border migration increases tensions with neighbors, for example, Lebanon hosting Syrians, Jordan hosting multiple refugee groups. Failed states become breeding grounds for terrorism and transnational crime, as governance evaporates under the relentless sun. The multiplier effect, climate stress, doesn't create conflict in a vacuum, it pours gasoline on existing fires. In Syria, a severe drought 2006 to 2010 contributed to rural collapse, mass migration to cities, and the social unrest that exploded in 2011. In Iraq, water shortages fuel protests against an already weak government, exploited by ISIS remnants and Iranian-backed militias. In Gaza, the UN warns the Strip will be uninhabitable by 2025 to water contamination and infrastructure collapse. Before the current war's devastation, climate change weakens states, empowers non-state actors, creates resource conflicts, and provides fertile ground for extremism. Breathe in the dust of dying civilizations. Breathe out the illusion that climate is a separate crisis. This fuse is woven into the very fabric of the land, slow burning but inextricably linked to every explosion, the interconnected inferno. When fuses cross, these three risks are not isolated silos. They feed into and amplify each other with terrifying synergy. Israel-Hezbollah war and Iran, a major northern conflict, is a direct confrontation with Iran. It could trigger Iranian retaliation across the region, including targeting Gulf oil infrastructure or accelerating its nuclear program as a deterrent. It could also lead Israel to strike Iranian nuclear sites preemptively if it perceives supreme vulnerability. Iran nuclear crisis and climate stress. A confrontation over nukes would devastate economies and infrastructure, crippling the region's ability to adapt to climate change. Conversely, climate-induced state failure in countries like Iraq creates vacuums Iran exploits to expand its influence and project power closer to Israel. Climate collapse and all conflicts. Water scarcity fuels tensions between Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria, creating flashpoints. Climate-driven instability in Egypt over Nile water or in Jordan over resources could spill over. Mass displacement creates humanitarian crises exploited by extremists and strains neighboring countries already facing their own climate pressures. Desperation makes populations more receptive to radical ideologies, fueling groups like ISIS or strengthening Iran's proxy networks. The wind shifts, the scent of ozone mixes with dust and salt. The contrails overhead seem to form jagged, warning sigils against the darkening sky. Breathe in the complex, terrifying perfume of a region on the edge. Breathe out the paralysis of fear. Conclusion: navigating the minefield, the Middle East stands at a perilous confluence. The fuse burning along the Israel-Lebanon border threatens an immediate, catastrophic explosion. The slow, steady advance of Iran towards nuclear threshold capability casts an ever-lengthening, existential shadow. And beneath it all, the relentless engine of climate change systematically dismantling the ecological and societal foundations, creating tinder for every spark. Understanding these top three risks isn't about predicting the exact sequence of events. It's about recognizing the volatile compounds mixing beneath the surface. It's about realizing that the next major crisis could erupt from any of these points and rapidly engulf the others. The diplomatic channels are strained, trust is non-existent, and the margin for error is vanishingly thin. The world watches, often with weary detachment or self-serving interest. But the detonation of any one of these fuses will not be contained within the deserts and mountains of the Middle East. The shockwaves, in energy markets, global security, mass migration, and economic stability, will ripple across the planet. The powder keg is primed, the fuses are lit, the only question is the force of the blast. And who will be left standing in the choking dust afterward? The last light fades. The desert cools, but the deep earth hums with unseen movement. Distant thunder rumbles. Or is it artillery? The stars appear, cold and indifferent witnesses. Sleep, if you can, but know this, the tremors you feel in the night are not dreams. They are the footsteps of approaching storms.